culture about it, and there are countries that have a comparative advantage of producing beef. That means they can do it better and cheaper. And this, in the end, help the poor. Okay. While a policy of will to power doesn't help. I will talk a little bit more about an industry that is close to me, the chicken industry, poultry industry. Main factor now keeping the prices of chicken higher in Indonesia and eggs higher than what it is in Europe is the fact that the main component of chicken feed is monopolized in terms of import by the government. Okay? So when you have a chicken farm, around 50 to 60% of your running cost is feed. So you understand that the price of feed is a very important element when you have a chicken farm. Okay, 50 to 60% of your running cost. Okay, what is basically the feed for chicken? Corn, maize, and the import of this element is monopolized by the government, and then the government decides how to distribute it. This system is simply keeping the price of corn higher. If Indonesian poultry farmers would be free to import freely corn, they could have access to corn at half the price that is now in Indonesia. So this would be eventually bring down the production cost and help to meet price expectations from the poorer classes. Okay. So we can recognize the good feelings that are behind government action in terms of helping the poor. But you have to be sure that a certain policy is actually helping the poor or is punishing the poor. It happens that usually, for the reasons I described so far, market is able to provide more efficient solutions. And I want you to understand this, not on an ideological level. Okay? You are students for liberty and you have to set yourself on fire in the name of liberty and free market. Because when you set yourself on fire, you will probably convert one person. But if you can technically demonstrate with the knowledge and information problem that whatever's come from a central planning will be technically inferior to when compared with a solution coming from the market, then you win the argument. Because we are not driven simply by ideological passion. We have to be driven by reality. We are perceived, when we talk about free market, as the people that defend the right of the rich people. Isn't it? You have this feeling. You are a friend of the market, of the bloody capitalist. You want to exploit the poor, and instead we want to help the poor. No. The argument that I try to explain so far, that can be declined with different approach to policy, is an argument that explains why free interaction in the market delivers better solutions for the poor. I don't know how it was here, but in Italy, an example, before 1995, more or less, we had government monopoly on telephone lines. Okay, so there was only one provider for landlines, and was the government. So to call my relatives in a different region of Italy was bloody expensive. We could call once a week to afford to talk with our relatives in southern Italy. Once a week only. In the moment in which the government decided to open that market to one operator more, prices dropped at least 50%. This for sure made someone rich. Of course, when the other player entered the market, did this for a profit, but his expectation for profit was successful because it met the people's expectation for lower tariffs, for lower prices, right? So I I'm not scandalized by the fact that people get rich. If the fact that people get rich somehow help the people that are poorer to be less poorer. Because when telephone is cheaper for everybody. So the first people that benefit from the fact that telephone is cheaper are the poor people, because the rich anyway will use it. They don't have this problem. But in order to have a sound solution to the problem of price telephone, we have to allow entrepreneurs to enter it. We have to open to the market. So we have to fulfill the expectation of someone to become richer. Okay? And somehow, this is the real concept of equilibrium, what Hayek called mutual consistency of plans. This is the equilibrium that we have to look at. The fact that via market interaction, individual plans become more mutually consistent. That means that they want to make money selling croissant and coffee, and they have to do it in a way that is accepted by the consumers of Senopati, this area. Okay? And they can discover how to do so only via interaction in the market, being guided by the decisions of the people. And the people, if the people will be able to get good coffee and good croissant and the price that they can afford, they can be successful. Otherwise, the final result will be that they close down and the people don't get coffee and croissant. Everybody is unhappy. The market helps people to discover how to make each other happy without having this as a main aim. They don't really care of your happiness. They care about making money, right? But in order to do so, they have to make you happy. And this is the Adam Smith invisible hand. That doesn't have nothing to do with the concept of equilibrium in a neoclassical way, but has a lot to do with the fact that we all entrepreneurially act every day in order to achieve goals. And in order to do so, we have to communicate information each other via the price management. And that's the way why every attempt to make central planning will make everybody unhappy. So like I said, the issue is not that we don't have to have plans, but if we want the few planning for the many, or the many planning for the many. So who plans for who? The market is that system through which the many plans for the many. And so far, proved to be the best system to deliver sound solutions to real problems. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Carmelo, for a very good theoretical insight for us. And now we are going to talk a little bit more of technical stuff about the regulations and research and so on by a young economist here. His name is Ilman. He graduated from Universitas Indonesia, economics, and yeah, he's new in CIPS, but I think he has a good potential to be the next remarkable economist in Indonesia. So, Ilman, the next topic.
The next row.
So, good evening, everyone. Good morning. I'm not really have a good public speaking as Professor Carmelo did. So, yeah, I hope that by using my limited English capability, you will understand a bit about the presentation that I and Mas Iqbal currently working on the impact of food prices on stunting prevalence in Indonesia. So basically, the technical stuff here that we're intended to find is that we want to know how food price dynamics in Indonesia affects stunting prevalence. Stunting itself is a type of malnutrition where those who are stunted, they are relatively shorter than human as a whole. So in Indonesia right now, as we can see, of all many malnutrition cases, stunting is one type that stood out the most in higher prevalences. So there are three types of malnutrition, specifically or on undernutrition. The first one is on wasting and underweight. Both are classified as thin, based on age or based on height. And also the stunting itself is on short. So what I can say is that when you are when you are having a lack in nutrition intake, you will likely to have a short or stunted kids. I think that's quite technical, but what I want to say on this slide is that a stunted person is very dangerous in the future because they will have lower productivity, have lower income, and they will more likely to get sick and dead because of obese and heart attack. So in Indonesia, based on the government calculations, the progress to eradicate stunting is very slow because only 4 provinces that have positive progress, and also the stunting itself affects not only the poorest but also the richest Indonesians. So it affects all of us. And then, yep. So why stunting happened? There are 4, based on the measurement by Assyifa, there are 4 determinants that cause stunting. So it is about bad feeding practice, limited health facility, poor sanitation, and poor access to nutritious food. While the first 3 are already regulated by several regulations, the regulation on access to nutritious food is not really planned well by the government until now. So, on the other hand, Indonesia also performs poorly in terms of food security. This means that the government of Indonesia didn't really working well on making sure that the government really provides cheap or accessible nutrition food for the society. Before I proceed to the past and present policies, what I really want to say is that the government just in 2011 established interventions to eradicate stunting, but unfortunately the framework itself didn't really specify on food prices. So what we are trying to find out is that since food price is essential as it is a factor of that causes stunting, but why the government still do not have a plan to work on this issue? Instead, the government impose some regulations that constrain the flow of food trade. Maybe on Professor Carmelo, he already said that there are 2 determinants that contra-argument the central planning, which are on the price and on the entrepreneurial choices. But unfortunately, based on these findings on regulations, we found that there are several regulations that limits the flow of goods to the markets, and which it will eventually influence the food price itself. So, our study, we analyzed 5 food bundles: rice, beef, chicken, eggs, and fishes. And we found that on our literary studies, we found that food prices are essentially affecting how people consume things. So we can say that when food price is high, people consume that food less. Yeah, that's kind of logical. But some studies prove it robustly, and we would like to implement it again, but with several food bundles that we chose based on the most consumed one in Indonesia. So based on Masiko and my measurement, we found that food price, when food price of beef, rice, beef, chicken, fish, and egg is getting higher, people of all ages, of all rich or poor classifications, they will less likely to consume that type of food bundles. And when they consume less of that rice, beef, chicken, fish, and egg, they will increase the chance of having a family with stunted children. So making sure that food price is affordable for everyone is essential to prevent the stunting prevalence to get higher. Next. Wait. Nah. This is the regression results, a bit about technical, but what I want to show here is that when the price, all the models of rice, beef, chicken, egg, and fish are significantly affecting the consumption, and the consumption is significantly affecting the stunting prevalence. I don't think we should go very deep to this issue, but what I really want to explain is on the regulation framework that we have. So rice, beef, fish, and chicken and eggs all face some trade policies that constrain them to have a smooth flow to the market. Based on the findings by Stephen Marks in 2008, I'm sorry, that's 2018 yet. What I can say here that rice and beef have most of the protection restrictions, because when you see the numbers on the column 5 here and the numbers of the column 4 here, what I can say is that the bigger the difference between the columns, the bigger the restrictions that the government implied to these commodities. So if we conclude from this table, rice and beef face very huge trade restrictions, while fish have quite less or no restrictions at all. So if we go back to the regulation framework, there are some trade restrictions that I would like to overview. Trade restrictions simply can be classified as the tariff measures and non-tariff measures. The tariff measures is simply government imposed tariff for the imported goods, while the non-tariff measures, government imposed regulations like quota or market limitation or any other kind of non-tariff measurements. And for the rice, rice is imported only by Bulog. Bulog is the government agencies that imported that only eligible to import rice. And our findings suggest that ever since the implementation of rice is implementation of monopoly is established again by the government, the rice price is have a diverge or a wider gap between the local price and the international price. The blue one is the international and the local one is the green one. This might our early findings suggest that when Bulog monopolized rice market, they intended to have a poor market analysis. This was because the government regulates when to import, and then the government also imposed that the Bulog will be the only one that can import. As what Professor Carmelo said earlier, the government, when they decided when to import, they are decided off the market, right? And this actually influences how the rice market, how the rice price works in local price in Indonesia. And also we found on the beef price, so under imported beef, there are several regulations that government imposed on the trade restrictions. The first one is the government limit access for imported beef to enter traditional markets. This is very, in my opinion, this is very wrong because traditional market consists of 70% of all markets. So when imported beef cannot enter traditional markets, sadly, the beef only able to go on catering or any industrial-based business, and society can access it freely. And this also influences the the beef price, when you can see the red one is the local price, and the pinkish is the world retail price. So ever since the implementation of the regulation, the beef price is not even converged. They still have this wide gap consistently. And for the poultry-based outputs, here I classify this as chicken and eggs, as what Carmelo works on the paper right now. As poultry-based outputs such as chicken and eggs very heavily rely on maize or corn as their inputs, actually 50% of the production cost only based on maize and corn. So the restriction that is implied on corn will likely to have influence or effect on the chicken and egg prices. So this is the graphic for the corn prices, where the implementation started in 2009 really don't help domestic price to go down, but it's getting wider and diverge. Furthermore, this is the price for the chicken compared to the world retail price. The world is in here is from the Brazil standard. So based on the implementation of the maize restrictions, the local chicken price is never even get lower compared to the world retail price. Okay, and it's okay. And this is the egg price, the one that Carmelo said earlier, that compared to the EU price, why I choose European Union price, because European Union are 50% of all export on eggs. So based on the calculations on 2013-2007, the local price never really have a significant lower price compared to the EU prices.
Just one, I want to add something here, because there is something that you have to realize is very peculiar regarding the price of the table eggs. Here we're talking about table eggs, not fertilized eggs. Because of course we all have the imagination that the price in Indonesia should be cheaper, because, in example, the labor is much cheaper, the agricultural labor, compared to Europe. But there is not only this to be noticed and make this data even more astonishing. These data are 2013-2017. Since 2012, in Europe is banned the production of table eggs in battery cages, which means in multi-level places, okay, where the hens laying their eggs and are automatically transported outside of the house, because of a new so-called welfare regulation. So Europe takes care of more of the welfare of the chicken than the people. And because of this, basically, chicken has to be housed with a certain distance between them, with certain space to move around, to have the winter garden. And this is affecting very much the production cost, because on the same land where before you could have 50 or 60,000 laying hens, now you can have only 10 to 20,000. So the number of eggs that you can get from the same plot of land is only 30% than before. Okay, so this had skyrocketed the price of production of eggs. Still, even with this technological advantage that Indonesia has, because doesn't have that welfare regulation, so can still produce with intensive methods that are much cheaper compared with the welfare methods, yet the prices of eggs are still higher than Europe. So with labor advantage and technological advantage, because in this case Indonesia has technological advantage when compared to Europe, yet the production costs are higher. And here is the reason that was mentioned, the fact that the import of maize, of corn, is monopolized by Europe. So keeping the corn price much higher. And corn price in the year production represents around 50% of the production cost. sorry for the interruption, but it was very important.
You may want to add some more and take my place.
No, sorry, no, I was really because it's a very technological and coming from the industry.
And last one is from the fish industry. What I can say simply here that fish industries rely on the soy as an input for the soybean meals. So soybean meals are feeds for the fish industries, and it's obviously made of soy. And the soy price is influencing 36% of production costs of fisheries industries. So ever since the implementation of soy restriction, the price of fishes in domestic compared to the world price is not really have a converged trend, which means that the implementation to protect soy industries didn't really help consumers to have lower prices. So before I go to the conclusion and recommendations here, maybe one insight that I can say is why I always have why I bring this issue of higher prices, despite what Professor Carmelo has said. With all the lower cheap labor costs and other production costs that relatively lower compared to the world price that I compared here, we can achieve lower prices. But ever since there is a trade restrictions, for rice is on monopoly by Bullock, for beef is on market limitation, and for the maize and for the soy is also on import timing and Bullock monopoly, it is hard to achieve a lower price. And the trend is not even converging, it's diverging or even constant. So the regulations should start to be care more to the consumer. This is because the current regulation always try to protect producers, while producers, there are also consumers. So what can we suggest based on the findings here are we should revising some regulations such as improving rice market competitiveness and also giving opportunity to Bullock to determine their own market analysis so that they don't really instructed by the government, and also opening access for imported beef to the traditional market, since it will help beef stocks to enter Indonesia, to enter society, because as what Professor Carmelo said earlier, that the beef are high in price, but in order to make it low, you should add more supply. But then the government imposed the import and restrictions, and it makes the price even higher. And for the maize and soybeans, lower restrictions such as opening market for these industries is essential to lower the production costs. I'm sorry if I have a really not smooth presentation, just like Professor Carmelo, but maybe Iqbal, do you want to add some more? Because we're working this year.
Okay, thank you for Ilman. I think we have some kind of we have some kind of clear understanding on what's going on in our country regarding in terms of food policies, especially what Ilman already conducted the research on beef prices and fish and chicken as well. And I think we sometimes heard that government tends to say that import is bad, but I think the research shows otherwise. So I think if you have any other argument or you have any other question, you can just directly ask to Professor Carmelo or Ilman. You can raise your hand or just mention your name and your institution. Anyone?
Clara, probably. That's a good presentation. I really appreciate that. But sorry, I was late, so I just didn't get 100%. That's it.
I actually have one. Ilman, you work with CIPS. They are doing some kind of policy advocacy and trying to change policy from research and doing lobbying and stuff. And I mean, do you have specific plan? I mean, that you can share us about the plan, how you can possibly change the regulation, what immediately that you go to and
Okay, so maybe I will share a bit about my experience in advocating papers from CIPS to the parliament members. So all the food-related policies are quite constrained by the bill of food that is established in 2012. That specifically say that the government should prioritize local food first and then importing. That's quite what the bill says. And then when I tried to advocate this to one of the members, parliament members from the Golkar party, surprisingly, with his background in economics also from Unhas, he kind of agree with the sense of market in terms of determining prices. But then when you have this argument and you try to lobby this idea to the other parliament members, there are quite challenges. There are some challenges because let's just be honest that trade or international trade is not very a popular policies. So these politicians, they don't really have guts to really try or say what they believe instead of just have this image, just want to keep an image that are quite populist. And maybe for if we relate this to your question, yeah, this is quite hard for CIPS, especially to really conduct lobbying with all the Commission 4 or Commission 6 parliament members. But then, what can I say from our experience is that if we don't really try, if we try, we know that the progress is slow. We just lobby one by one. But I think we should really consistent doing this, because if we're not doing this, maybe there will be no changes on this regulation.
any other question?
I have a question actually, and I'm very sorry that I missed your presentation here, but you actually said something that I found interesting. My name is Blanca. I produce content for CNBC Asia Pacific, which has nothing to do with CNBC Indonesia, by the way. You were saying that governments and politicians in general like to promote. Oh, I'm thinking. Okay.
No.
Like to promote basically products being created in the market rather than promoting imports, which actually makes sense. But you were saying that actually is not the right way to go. So if you could just please further develop your point, because I understand that the main concern of governments is always going to be food sustainability within their national frontiers. And obviously you always want to somehow level your balance of imports and exports and always excel your exports. So obviously you need to do that if you want to promote the local economy and you want to create labor and you want to also benefit the products within the brand of Indonesia on an international level. So why wouldn't that be possible or positive for Indonesia?
I think Ilman or Mr. Carmelo can answer.
Because the voice was a little bit low, so my understanding is that we mentioned that Indonesia is trying to promote that sort of autarkic policy, while we are more in favor of international trade. And your point is that promoting local production is indeed a benefit for the development of the local economy.
Yeah.
I got the point correctly?
Yeah.
So the issue is not what is, I believe, what is best in absolute terms, but in relative terms. We have to check in the condition of the country, and we have a theoretical apparatus coming back since the time of David Ricardo, so dating back 200 years, according to which each country should specialize in doing what they can do better than others. That means at an inferior relative cost. So far there are certain productions that are proved in Indonesia to be less competitive than the import of that product. And the final outcome is that consumers are excluded by the possibility to buy that product, because by reducing the supply, cutting out the import, you are keeping the price high, because you are protecting the local producers, somehow keeping the supply low, and therefore these producers can sell at a high price, reaching only the rich people in the country. So looking from the perspective of the poorer consumers, an opening to the international market would be beneficial because we bring the price down.
Okay.
And we are talking about very essential product for the nutrition of the poorest, not only the beef that somehow can be seen as a product for the higher classes, but chicken is traditionally the cheapest source of proteins, because chicken become protein on the table in 1 month from conception to slaughter. 2 months from conception. So by opening to the international market for the beef, in example, or for the raw materials that are necessary in order to produce chicken and eggs, we are helping the poor to have access to protein at a cheaper level. Then this does not mean that Indonesia cannot achieve local production, but somehow opening the market will force them also to compete, so to better their level of technology, and therefore to start producing beef or chicken or corns at a competitive price. And therefore what now is not competitive to be produced in Indonesia can become so in the future. But it will never be if we continuously protect the local producers, because by protection you create a negative incentive to technological development. This is what happened, in example, in Malaysia with the automobile industry. Okay. So you got the...
I get that picture. That's actually very useful. I understand that the UN has also programs for exchange of know-how and for the development for local producers. Is that being contemplated?
Sorry, can you repeat a little bit louder?
Like the UN has actually like programs, specific programs within the food program agencies that are actually intended to deliver know-how to local producers. Is that being contemplated within your study, the effects of those programs?
No, it's not in our studies, but I would say that I'm quite skeptical about these programs. And unlikely you came later, so you missed a presentation that was really on this point.
I was in another meeting.
When we're talking about production, entrepreneurial action, the very important side is not really the technical know-how, because that one can be always bought, okay, in the market. The important thing is to know the conditions of the market, means the condition of time and space. That means to be in this spot of Jakarta, it is a wise entrepreneurial choice to open a cafe or a co-work area. This is a kind of knowledge that can be acquired only in the market. That means via inter-individual exchange of information. So the government will never be able to support on that level. The technological know-how, I can tell you, I come from a business perspective. is already exchanged in the market.
Okay.
And it is a matter of local entrepreneurial decision to decide eventually to take advantage of this know-how or not. And I can make you an example. I worked for a Dutch company for a while that was producing automatic nests for breeder chicken. Okay? The main raw material of these nests is wood. This wood was bought in Indonesia, transported in Holland, transformed and resold here in the form of finished product. Once I discussed with a local trader of equipment for chicken farms, I said, why? You have basically all you need there. I can bring you from my side the technological know-how, and you can put your entrepreneurial situation at work by using this raw material to produce the same breeder nest at a cheaper price. So you will enjoy a very big entrepreneurial advantage compared with the European producer. You can have a joint venture with the European technology. Nola, malas, Gamal. Much more easy to sell something that someone else is doing. This is a problem of a local entrepreneurial spirit. Okay. As far as his profit will be good enough just by trading, he will have never the entrepreneurial incentive to use that know-how for a local production. When the Chinese competition start to make European products less attractive, then probably you have more incentive to start using a certain know-how for local production. But that is a matter of local entrepreneurial development. So the know-how can be there, but there are other conditions that are typically economical and entrepreneurial that cannot be brought in from the outside. Need to be developed through market process and market interaction. So it implies a process of change that is educational, but is also very related with the local market conditions.
Oh, thanks for that. Would it be possible for you to share some of your study with me?
Sure, I will give you my card.
All right, thanks. Appreciate.
If I might follow up on her question just now, you mentioned about how the market, in a way, is trying to protect the core, and by imposing the import quota and everything will actually, because the price will get higher, which means they won't be able to have access. I think something that needs to be noted is how these poor people are the producers of meats, beef, farmers basically, and by imposing this import quota, I think what the government's idea, by imposing import quota and the restrictions and whatnot, will quote unquote empower these farmers so that they will have better income. And with these, if we allow these imported products to surge into the market, well, the supply will increase, therefore the price will go down. And if the price goes down, the income of these farmers, who are again the poor people, represent the poor demographic, will earn less income. Therefore, they wouldn't be able to have access anyway. I think that's the government's perspective here. And
this government perspective is based on a false assumption that these poor people are the producer. The chicken industry, 5 groups produce 80% of the chicken in Indonesia. 5 groups.
You mean like major corporations?
Major corporations, mostly foreigners, from Thailand, Malaysia, and Korea. So to base policy on the fact that the chicken that reaches the market is the chicken produced by poor farmers is a picture of Indonesia 30 years ago. No more sustainable with the local agriculture system in Indonesia, where small independent farmers, I have the data in the papers that I wrote, but I think moved to be 60% to 1% of the share of the farmers. So it's not true that these poor people are mainly the consumers. The development of the market, the agricultural market, kicked somehow them out, or they were absorbed, their facilities were absorbed, rented, even if sometimes they are present, but they usually work as contract farmers for bigger groups. So, sorry if I interrupt, but it's the assumption that is wrong, that these poor people are the farmers, they are not.
But maybe also I would like to come a bit, but that's for the poultry industry, but for the rice industry, you may be right, because the poor demographics mostly works because paddy farmers. But on the other hand, finding by Ilman in 2008 and the following studies in 2010 found that 75 to 80% farmers are very small farmers that they will also be worse off if the rice price is very high. So by imposing price restrictions to the overall society, as the government implied today, it will likely be influenced badly to these rice farmers. That's what I can say for the rice industry. As for the beef industry, it is not because the beef farmers are quite poor or something. It is more to the culture that that the owners of cattle, they do not really want to make their cattle becoming beef, because cattle are seen as an asset, not as a product for the beef itself. So they are classified as not very poor in terms of owning assets.
I think if I may add, I actually have some data on the the rice market, and it is actually the huge amount of the rice farmer is actually a net consumer. So they actually just working for the farm, but actually if the price is high, the benefit will go to the landowners, not the actual farmers. I will show you that later, but the point is sometimes politicians make something so, something like something blur about topics because they want to get vote. So I think we have to separate the comment of the economists and politicians. I think that's the one. Any other comments or questions?
Why are the very high prices of rice becoming is a problem for the farmers?
Because they are also net consumer. They work and they get paid for their work in hours or in days or months. But they actually buy rice again in the market too. It's the landowner. Yes.
I want to add something. The amount of land that is actually being used for agricultural purposes, especially for rice farming, is actually being drastically reduced because of the fact that a lot of second generation and third generation children of farmers, they simply don't want to carry on the work, right? So yes, there is a deficit in terms of the agricultural supply with the needs of the country at the moment. So how would you see how long would you project that we need to be able to import? When, in how many years would you think would it be critical?
Will it be critical
for us to import? Until we wake up that we have to import because our supplies simply cannot reach, and the agricultural industry itself is dwindling down because these kids, the younger generations of these farmers from these agricultural families are moving towards the manufacturing and service industries. How many years?
To be exactly how many years, to be honest, I don't have the numbers, I'm sorry, but the government, they intended to aim for self-sufficiency in rice in 2045.
That's a dream.
That's a dream.
That's a dream.
But then, as you say, the numbers of the paddy farm are decreasing, and the government intended to achieve 500 to 1 million hectares of new paddy fields outside Java. But based on the historical experience, it always failed because of the land fires and some things. But today, this morning, the statistics in Indonesia established the new figures, and it shows that instead of assume the government already have 17 tons of surplus, they already have only 1 million or 2 million tons of surplus. This means, if I can say it very roughly, maybe in 2020, starting from 2020, we cannot really rely on to the production, because the consumption is always increasing, but the numbers of the new paddy fields doesn't really increase as much as the numbers of consumption. Maybe in the next 2020 or so.
And based on your experience with the policymakers, how many of them would you say, or would there be a positive amount of them that would understand the difference between food sovereignty and food security?
I don't think they really understand the difference, because it is hard to, maybe they understand, but somehow it is the public perception that cannot differentiate it. And legislative members, they always follow public perceptions. Yeah, I think it's hard to work on.
Other comments or questions?
I want to ask about, what is it? I read it somewhere on Cybercoin's blog that the manufacturing industry in America definitely was very affected by the move of manufacturing centers to China, right? And it brought prosperity to China, but it definitely laid off so many people and basically put to rest the America's manufacturing industry. And if we and there's a view that we have in Indonesia, someone said it to me is a development or the welfare of the producers, that we as Indonesian citizens, we see in the newspapers that we are willing to pay a little bit more of the price in order to keep our Indonesian producers alive, etc., etc. But seeing from the trends now, seeing the technological, stagnation and the price chaos and the import regulations that are contradictory of one another and the second order effects, saying that I don't think we have any other choice other than waiting for some industries to come down and then to deflate and not grow very much anymore. So what do you think in the term of free market style, what do you think would be the solution, or if there is a solution? If there is a solution for the nationalists at heart, for example, people.
The only solution is probably education. Is that what we are doing with Students for Liberty, CIPS, organization in the area is crucial, because there is always, and this sentiment is growing periodically, is coming up around the world, the idea that we have to defend ourselves, that national products are a good thing necessarily, because we have to protect our labor. This is based on gut feelings on the people. It makes sense at a certain extent. Okay? People perceive, okay, we delocalize, we lose jobs, and this drives politics. But what we are trying to do here is to educate about the ratio behind our positions. So we have to work hard to make the people understand that free market is better for them. And I mentioned that before, there is a general misconception about the people that defend free market, that somehow they are defending corporate interests of big corporations, etc. We really have a very tough mission in making them understand how our argument is an argument that is for the good of all the people. that freedom of the market is something that can bring welfare for everybody. We have data now about this, but of course politics is always against us. Politicians, now we have a debate in Malaysia about minimum wage, and the people that are actually earning less than minimum wage is 1% of the population. So what are we actually talking about? It's just political, ideological argument. Well, I believe that the initiatives, all the intellectual and technical initiatives that we can put in place will play a very important role for the future. One thing that I try to push inside our environment is also to be more active really on education, because we can try to influence politicians, and I'm very skeptical about the possibility to do so, because it's very difficult to have major people to change their mind. But where it is possible to act is on the younger generation, where you still have possibility to discuss at this level and make them convinced that somehow they got wrong messages. So education, I think, will be the ground, the battleground of the future.
Mr. Alfian, do you have any questions? We usually have one or two comments.
I'm particularly interested in CIPS' perspective on this. You mentioned about people today, millennials, let's say, they're not particularly interested in the agriculture sector. The amount of lands used for the agriculture sector is diminishing constantly. What exactly is stopping people from being part of this sector? Which is quite, I find this to be pretty ironic, because, like when we are still students, we grew up listening, oh, Indonesia is an agriculture country, and yet the amount of land used for that sector continues to diminish. And honestly, I don't want to be a farmer, let's say, and even that university that's supposed to breed farmers, they don't work in that sector by the end. What exactly is happening? Is there a certain barrier to entry? Like Mr. Carmelo mentioned just now, there are major corporations working in that sector. Are they blocking new actors in that sector?
Well, I can say in two perspectives. The technical challenge. First, the technical challenge of being a farmer nowadays is one and the foremost is climate change. In the past decade, the harvesting time is always postponed, and obviously, being a farmer, you'll get money for your living for the 6 months only by on the harvesting time. So when your harvesting time postponed, you will postpone another month to save some money that you have. And these uncertainties on the climate change and also the harvesting time and the planting time and how you really depends on the weather, it kind of distract you from doing job on the farming side. Especially for land farming such as rice, corn, and Szami. But then on the more kind of knowledge side, the knowledge transfer from the parent side to their children is quite separated. This is because information that are transformed from their parents to their sons is quite irrelevant due to the external factors that I already said earlier.
Well, I don't see the process that happened in this sense necessarily negative. I see instead what is happening in the agriculture sector with the concentration in corporations can paradoxically drive back people into agriculture. Talking about the poultry industry, it's really an industry. 5 companies producing, I think, 70 or 80% of the national production of chicken. So this means that the person like you, in example, that has achieved a certain level of education, okay, and aim to a certain kind of job, might think that it's not interesting to be a farmer in a traditional sense. You might instead be interested in working in one of these corporations that has to deal with agriculture, but they have purchasing offices, finance, logistics, budgeting, planning, so they are real corporations. And therefore, working in these companies, you might have, at the same time, the appeal from working, professionally speaking, not really as a farmer in a traditional way, but at the same time, get in touch with the side of agriculture. I mean, a chicken is a chicken, that's or not, it smells the same. I can tell you. But in this way, you with an education might be attracted back into agriculture, because agriculture is not anymore what was used to be. So it's somehow we can have a reconciliation between young generations and traditional world, because the traditional sector is not anymore done with traditional techniques. There is a level. I mean, I work for a company that produces incubation machines for hatching chicken eggs. And I can tell you the technology behind that, the kind of know-how that we need to do that, is high. Okay? And so the people that later on use these machines in farms are people that have to have knowledge about ventilation systems, about humidity, about electrical mechanical engineering for maintenance. So there are skills that are necessary into the agricultural work that were not necessary 40 years ago. I think that only because of genetics, in the past 50 years, we doubled, we cut half the time for a chicken to reach 2 kilos. Okay? So at the beginning of the 60s, in the 1960s, there were necessary 60 days for a chicken to reach 2 kilos. Now you can do it in 30 days. This is because of genetics. It's pure genetics. So imagine the kind of knowledge that is behind this achievement. And this achievement means that achieving the same level of weight in half the time, you use half feed, half water, half electricity, half labor, etc. And therefore, the final result is the chicken is more affordable. But in order to achieve that, you go back to genetics. And in order to go back to genetics, you need know-how. So we have also to move beyond the traditional view about agriculture. It's no more old people eating the chicken like this. It doesn't work like that anymore. If you step into a chicken farm, you'll be amazed by the level of technology behind.
I think it's time to talk about government institution. I mean, Ilman mentioned that there is one government institution called Bulog, which is monopolizing the import of rice and the consequences of the price. Maybe you can elaborate more about the Bulog that you mentioned. I mean, what they are doing and what possibly we can do, or
closing food. Apart from closing food?
Well, no realistic plan. Besides abolishing Bulog.
So, Bulog, the head of Bulog himself is very, very related to political alliance. So, obviously, abolishing Bulog is not the answer because it will affect the political dynamics. But when it comes to monopoly in Bulog, so Bulog is set to become the only dependent institution by all the food sectors to really have the ability to import some kind of commodities. And this might be actually this might be good, might be in a better condition if the bullock have their own ability to analyze their own market. So they might be working as a true entrepreneur and have their own entrepreneurial choice and their sense of price. And sense of signaling price. But then this cannot be happened because there is a regulation that strict bullock to conduct import only by a coordination meeting that is quite rigid, that is involved from Ministry of Agriculture, Trade, and also Ministry of Economy and the bullock itself. So these ministerial meetings have set political incentive to conduct imports, and it will eventually distract the market analysis. And if bullock can also analyze their own market, they might somehow be in a better condition, but not good enough because they don't really have a competitor. And as what Professor Carmelo said earlier, in Indonesian context, if you don't have a competitor, you will malas. And this might this will make bullock didn't really improve their ability to conduct efficient distribution supply chain, because what makes the rice or any other commodity that bullock imports quite high compared to the world price is the supply chain itself that bullock do not conduct efficiently.
It's interesting that a company that's been existing since the Jakarta era still hasn't gotten down to supply chain.
Have there been any cases where, let's say, bullock is in charge of distribution? Have there been any cases where a country that once had an institution like bullock and then moved them, resulting in a price going down?
As far as I know, many socialist countries also have the same perception of having their own institution in imports. And as far as I know, they fail to do so. They fail to make the price going down. They want to correct me?
Have there been any food that abolished remove these institutions, but then afterwards the price would be cheaper?
Well, I cannot really say because I don't really have the numbers for that scenario. But then when we compare between industries, for example, we have rice only imported by bullocks, but corn can also be imported by other private companies other than bullocks. But unfortunately, most firms that import corn also stay low. So the bullock performance on the importing corns, if we see from the price indicator, is quite better in corn compared to the rice. So it indicates a little bit that a little competition is much better. Compared to the market. I think it's some Jakarta at the moment.
Why am I asking this? Because if we look at Indonesia's context here, please correct me if this is another false assumption. Why I think the government institution can actually be helpful by taking over the distributional function is because the pull-up is that still a phenomenon? Like, if the government doesn't buy products from farmers, do they do that? Yes, they buy from the farmers and then distribute to the market. If the private one, or in this case, the pull-up, does that kind of discriminate with farmers? Or do pull-up also discriminate with farmers?
Well, okay, thank you. When when you have pull-up and then pull-up, farmers. Here's one thing that differentiates the problem between the pull-up and the pull-up. The pull-up, they also have to follow the government instruction in terms of pricing, and this pricing is not always be favorable for the farmers. So they will, because the government set the price too low for the farmers. So Bullock will only be able to buy rice paddy from the farmers in a very low price that farmers don't really favor with. So they will choose the Bullock instead, and this is problematic.
How strategic would it be if we were to use the co-op mechanism? In several countries abroad, the co-op mechanism actually operates quite well. In New Zealand, you have Fonterra. In the Netherlands, you have Friesland Campina. And they basically have a network of farmers working together and create a co-op, right? And in some cases, in an alternative method of overriding the co-op, instead of cutting them out of the process, they actually involve them in the process of creating a value-added product. Rather than, let's say for the rice industry, let's say instead of selling your rice in a black plastic bag with no label, they have this help in the process of actually creating it into a label and have that as an added value product. That's actually one of the training that the United Nations does. In southeastern Sulawesi, they train housewives to create a value-added product from sagu, and then they package it very, very nice, and that's a training that they receive, and that's actually cutting down the actual cost of the people effectively. But from your perspective, if we were to apply that, would that be strategic in strengthening the agricultural sector?
Yeah. In my perspective, that might be a good initiative, but I kind of bit skeptical if we really imply that kind of strategy in national scope, because in Indonesia, each regions they have different approach. Once you can do it in Eastern Sulawesi, you might not be able to do it in Kalimantan, for example, because of many cultural and socio-economic contexts. And the government, in order to face this, they have to set different approaches and have to face that this might not work for everyone.
You also address the environmental negative impact that the government actually does by expanding new agricultural land, because in the national budget planning, when it comes down to labeling how much of the budget is environmentally friendly, what they say is environmentally friendly includes the expansion of agricultural land in places where agricultural land isn't supposed to be there. For example, the president's brilliant idea of creating an agricultural hub in Papua. That's actually clearing a lot of land in the forest, and that is labeled by the United Nations as environmentally negative. That's why the UNDP rejects the help of the government in that, especially in agrarian reform, because the government doesn't want to listen, right? But do you note that when you talk to the government that, hey, what you're doing by expanding, because we do realize that there is diminishing agricultural land, but what you're doing by expanding new agricultural land is actually environmentally damaging and actually economically bad.
Yeah, because they still have this stubborn willingness to make new farming lands outside Java, because they don't have another land in Java. Obviously, it's changing to housing and industrial, and they really want to achieve this dream of having food self-sufficiency in 2045. As long as the government or parliament members or any politicians cannot really shift their perspective from food security and food sovereignty, I think it's quite hard for any, if you have 10 to 100 academicians, experts that say about this, it's very hard to say this. And what makes them really stick to this point is because of the public stigma and public image of intergeneric itself. So maybe as what Professor Carmelo said, is an education that plays an important part. But then when he said education, I kind of laugh a bit because our education kind of sucks a bit. Yeah, and a lot of reforms are currently going on now. But is it? And education is not a short term. You can see the result in short term. Yeah, I think that's why.
I think that is all about tonight because it's going like super late, and I think we can still discuss or network or just chill around. Yeah, we still have time to like kind of So if you have any other question to Professor Carmelo or Ilman, go there and discuss.